Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of the Roundabout Way of Fate. This will be Part 16, Chapter 11, entitled The Attack. Thankfully, the rest of the week passes without much drama. Izuku spends most of the weekend reading the other book Recovery Girl assigned to him. The one that she's made notes in about the most common injuries she sees hero students get. He also wants to start doing research on ways he can help his classmates deal with the effects of their quirk overuse. But that's probably going to take a while, so he tells himself to finish the book first. It's bigger than the first aid book, but it's nothing compared to human anatomy and physiology. He'd be grateful to read literally anything other than that monstrosity of a book. When he meets Recovery Girl the next Monday morning, she looks slightly less surprised when she learns how much he's read already. "I suppose there's no point in me telling you to go slow," she says with a deadpanned voice, and Izuku smiles sheepishly. She sniffs and turns back to her desk, seeming rather annoyed. "The same goes for Toshinori-san, apparently." Izuku blinks. "Hmm?" With an irritated sigh, Recovery Girl says, "Ever since his strength has been returning, his time limit has been steadily increasing as well." Izuku nods. All Might has told him this. His mentor purses her lips. "Because of this, he's been staying out longer and longer. He doesn't know how to limit himself anymore. That man has been a teacher for only a week, and he's already been late twice. He was supposed to meet me before school starts because I wanted to check on his injury, but alas." She gestures to her infirmary, which is notably all Mightless. Recovery Girl almost always seems annoyed when talking about All Might, so Izuku knows not to take her displeasure too seriously. "He probably just got a bit sidetracked," he says, pulling out his phone to check his social media. One of the All Might accounts he follows reports that the #1 hero has already solved 3 incidents this morning. He shows her his phone. "See? He's working." Recovery Girl remains unimpressed. Izuku texts All Might as he walks to homeroom. "Beware of the angry Recovery Girl." Message read at 10:45 a.m. During lunch, Izuku checks the news again and sees that All Might seems to be caught up in a hostage situation. He frowns. Even though All Might doesn't teach any morning classes, it still isn't a good idea to tire himself out before their afternoon lesson. He'll probably be late. "What's with the face, Midori-kun?" Ashido asks. Izuku startles out of his thoughts and puts his phone away. "Nothing," he says, turning back to his lunch. Lunch Rush makes good katsudon, but not as good as his mother's, of course. Kacchan wrinkles his nose. "I don't understand how you can eat that stuff so often." Izuku scowls at him. "I like katsudon." "Me too," Sero agrees. "Although I can never really finish the whole thing. It's kinda heavy, you know?" "Not exactly healthy either," Kacchan says pointedly. Izuku gives him a shrewd look. "Am I being fat-shamed here?" Kacchan's eyes widen slightly, and the others laugh in response. "What the fuck? No!" he snaps. "I'm just wondering how the hell a guy your size can pack away so many fucking calories without becoming fucking obese." "I don't eat that much, Kacchan," Izuku says sniffily, turning up his nose. "Sure, maybe I have a bit of a sweet tooth, and maybe I like to have a few snacks here and there, but—" He's interrupted by Kirishima laughing. "Nobody's shaming you, Midoriya-kun," Kirishima grins. "My quirk requires me to eat a lot of protein." "Yeah, lay off, Bakugo-kun," Ashido pouts. "It's not his fault his quirk makes him hungry. Yaomomo has to eat a lot in order to use her quirk." "A lot of people have specific diets tailored to their quirks," Sero adds. Kacchan arches a brow, looking at Izuku in confusion. "Wait, what the fuck? I didn't know you had to eat a lot." Izuku is confused, too. I don't? At least, I don't think so." Ashido tilts her head. "Huh? Are you sure?" she asks. "I mean, I just figured. Didn't you say your quirk relies on you transferring your energy or something? Izuku nods. So, the more energy you have, the better it works. She looks at him like it should be obvious. And shit, maybe it is. Izuku stares at his katsudon, dumbfounded. How did he not realize this sooner? It's not like he eats an outrageous amount more than normal, but he's definitely never shied away from putting a little extra on his plate, or going for a snack between classes. He's even noted something similar in his old quirk journal about how if he doesn't sleep so well the previous night or skips breakfast, then his quirk is more sluggish, and he tires out a lot faster. It's something he's noticed but never really thought too much about. Oh, he says lamely. I guess I didn't realize. You didn't realize that food affects your energy? Kaminari looks rather amused. Haven't you ever taken a health class, Midoriya-kun? Food basically is energy. Izuku blushes. Well, it's just something I do automatically. Eat a lot, I guess I just figured I had a big stomach. He feels very dumb right now. Kirishima snorts. Well, at least now you know. Maybe you should talk to Yaomomo, Ashido suggests, shoving some rice into her mouth. You could, talk about what foods to eat, or, I don't know, get addicted to energy drinks. Ha! I'd love to see Midoriya-kun all hopped up on caffeine. Kaminari laughs. I don't think that'd be too healthy, Izuku says as he smiles. But good idea, Ashido-san. With this new information in mind, he makes sure to finish his food by the time the lunch bell rings. He's not quite sure exactly what is going to happen in their hero class today, but Recovery Girl said they'll be doing rescue training in an off-campus facility. And since it doesn't involve combat with quirks, Izuku will be expected to participate. He and his classmates are excited when Aizawa announces what their training session will be later in class. Disasters, shipwrecks, and everything in between, the teacher grunts. It's rescue training. Rescue? Looks like it'll be a lot of work this time, too, Kaminari says, looking at Ashido, who pumps her fists eagerly. Idiot, this is the duty of a hero, Kirishima says behind him. My arms are ready to rumble. He grins and then glances at Izuku. Hey, Midoriya-kun, are you going to train with us? Izuku nods. Yeah, Recovery Girl said that sometimes healers act as combat medics and join search and rescue agencies. Kachan grumbles at this, but Izuku ignores him. I'm not quite sure yet about what I'm going to do in the future, but I definitely want to do as much as I can. Hey, I'm not done, Aizawa grunts. You can decide if you want to wear your costumes or not this time. The panels on the wall slide open, and Izuku's heart leaps into his throat. He gets to wear his costume again. Since the training is taking place off campus, they're going to take a bus. They all quickly get changed into their costumes and make their way outside. As soon as they're ready, Ida starts blowing a whistle very loudly and commands them to file into the bus in a neat and orderly fashion. Izuku glances at Yaoyorozu, who looks like she doesn't know whether to join in Ida's overly enthusiastic leadership or just let him do his thing. Izuku's eyes meet hers, and he gives her an apologetic smile. He had no doubt that Ida would take to his responsibility of vice class president well, but he hopes Yaoyorozu isn't feeling overshadowed by Ida's strong personality. To his relief, though, he watches as the girl straightens up a moment later and tentatively approaches the blue-haired boy, helping him order their classmates onto the bus in a much calmer manner. The ride to the training facility goes by quickly. Izuku listens as his friends talk about their quirks and how popular they'll be as heroes, and laughs when Kaminari makes fun of Kachan's personality. I'll kill you, the blonde snarls, and Izuku hastily pulls him back. Easy, Kachan, he says. Kaminari-kun's only teasing. Kachan plops back down into his seat with a huff, grumbling. Little shit. Under his breath, Izuku pats his shoulder placatingly. Asui says with a blank voice. Well, even if his personality is crap steeped in sewage, at least we have Midoriya-chan here to tame him. Kachan explodes again. Tame me! He's not fucking taming me! Kachan, Izuku says, frowning. The blonde's muscles subconsciously relax ever so slightly, and he turns to give the greenette a withering glare. Yaoyorozu haughtily turns her nose away and comments, "It's a miracle you've been able to deal with his outrageous behavior for so long without going insane, Midoriya-kun." Kachan wordlessly snarls at her, and Izuku giggles. "Who's to say I haven't already gone insane?" Kachan gives him a look of utter betrayal, while everyone around him laughs. "We're here," Aizawa's voice calls out, interrupting the laughter. "Stop messing around." The bus soon comes to a stop and everyone starts getting off. As they stand up, Izuku gently nudges Kachan with his shoulder, giving him an apologetic smile. Kachan huffs sharply but nudges him back, albeit a bit roughly, before he turns away. Forgiven. The training facility seems to be a large dome of some sort, and when they walk inside, they're greeted by the Space Hero 13. Izuku immediately recognizes them from his hero journals. Everyone is super excited to see them, especially Uraraka, who apparently really likes this particular pro-hero. 13 introduces the training ground as the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short, which was created by them. It contains different kinds of disaster zones, including a shipwreck, landslide, fire, windstorm, etc. As 13 explains, Aizawa looks down at his phone and scowls. "By the way," 13 asks, glancing at Aizawa, "where's All Might?" "Late," Aizawa huffs and pockets his phone. "Said he'll be arriving at the school soon, but to go ahead and start the lesson." 13 doesn't seem discouraged. "Ah, well, he'll get here soon enough. Anyway, let's see." They turn back to the students. "Before we begin, let me say one thing, or two, or three." The numbers keep increasing, and the class winces. 13 gives a long speech about quirks and how they can do good, but also can kill easily if people don't know how to use them properly. The pro-hero emphasizes that the students do not have powers so they can harm one another, but so they can use them to save people. Izuku glances at Bakugo at this, but the explosive blonde is merely scowling. As they talk, Izuku looks around the USJ facility, eyeing the various disaster zones. He wonders how the training will go, and if he'll be any good at it, without a combative quirk. Even though he appreciates his ability to heal, part of him will always be disheartened at not being able to become a true hero. Joining a rescue agency as a combat medic is probably the closest he can get to his original dream, so he hopes he does well today. Suddenly, the lights in the dome go out. Izuku is so lost in thought that he doesn't notice at first, but then his eyes slide to the fountain in the center of the facility. The water sputters a few times before it becomes swirly? No, that's not right. Something is swirling, but a few seconds later it becomes clear that some sort of portal is forming. "Sensei?" he asks, frowning in confusion. Aizawa follows his gaze and instantly stiffens up. The portal suddenly explodes with purple and black tendrils. Amidst the fog, a pale hand reaches out. "Gather together and don't move," Aizawa suddenly orders. 13, protect the students." Izuku's classmates murmur in confusion before they notice the portal too. Their eyes widen as a man steps through the purple mass, almost immediately followed by multiple other large people. "Those are villains," Aizawa growls, slipping his yellow goggles out of his scarf and putting them on. Izuku's heart stutters at his words. He watches as his teacher steps forward and peers down at the villains as they continue to pour out of the portal, a grim look on his face. 13 glances at him as he says, "The trespassing last week was the work of these scumbags after all, huh?" Izuku tenses up. Trespassing? But it was just the media, wasn't it? Recovery Girl's worried face appears in his mind, telling him to stay close to Kachan on his way home. His eyes widen. As his classmates exclaim their alarm, Yaoyorozu speaks up. "Sensei, What about the trespasser sensors? 13 replies. We have them, of course, but... Did they only appear here or around the whole school? Todoroki suddenly says, his voice impassive. Izuku is shocked at how calm both he and Yaoyorozu are, but he supposes they've had more training than the rest of them. Either way, if the sensors are not responding, that means they have someone with a quirk that can do that. An isolated area separated from the main campus during a time when a class is supposed to be here. They might be fools, but they're not dumb. The surprise attack was planned with some sort of goal in mind. Despite Todoroki's calm demeanor, his words only make his classmates even more uneasy. Aizawa orders 13 to start evacuating everyone and try calling the school, telling Kaminari to try as well. Then, he steps closer to the edge of the platform, his scarf flying up around him as he tenses up. Izuku startles. Sensei! You can't possibly be thinking of fighting them all by yourself. There's too many. He knows Eraserhead is a skilled fighter. He's seen for himself how easily the hero can deal with a small group of villains. But there must be dozens of them pouring out of the portal. There's no way he can fight them all. After the man saved him when he was 10, Izuku scoured the internet for every video he could find of him fighting. So he knows very well that Eraserhead is at a huge disadvantage here. His fighting style is to capture after erasing the enemy's quirk. Long battles against a large group of people are not his forte. He's not physically enhanced. He'll get tired. His eyes will get dry. He'll get hurt. Don't worry about me. Aizawa interrupts his panicked thoughts, not sparing him a glance. You stay in the middle of the group and get back to the bus. Without another word, he grabs a few folds of his capture weapon and leaps down into the fray. Sensei! He cries out, but 13 quickly starts ushering everyone towards the door. Kachan grabs him by the arm and drags him along. You heard him, he growls, pushing him ahead. Ida glances back at him and puts a hand on his shoulder, guiding him so that he's running in the center of the group. It makes sense, keeping the healer in the safest part of the group, and from the way the other students flank around him, he's not the only one who realizes. A tiny spark of indignance still erupts in his chest, though. The retreating students suddenly skid to a halt as the portal villain materializes in front of them. It's a pleasure to meet you, the mass of fog says in a surprisingly polite voice. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we have invited ourselves into the home of the heroes, UA High School, in order to have All Might, the symbol of peace, take his last breath. I believe All Might should have been here. Has there been some kind of change? Nobody responds, staring at the villain with fearful eyes. Izuku gulps. This is real. These are real villains right in their school. And they're here to kill All Might? The #1 hero is already on his way, but Izuku almost doesn't want him to get here. The villains seem so confident in their abilities. Surely they must be a real danger. After a moment of silence, the purple mask continues. Well, regardless, this is the part I am to play. He suddenly begins growing bigger, the fog spreading out. 13 tenses up and raises their finger, clearly preparing to use their quirk, but suddenly Kachan and Kirishima lunge forward. Izuku's heart leaps to his throat as his friends pounce on the villain. A large explosion from Kachan's palms makes the ground rattle as dust and smoke fills the air, obstructing their view briefly. Did you consider you'd get beaten by us first? Kirishima snarls, his forearms raised and hardened. To everyone's surprise, however, the villain remains unharmed. Even if you are students, you are excellent golden eggs, he says. As 13 orders Kachan and Kirishima to move away, he adds, My job is to scatter you all and torture you to death. The tendrils of fog suddenly dart forward and surround them all. Izuku panics as he loses sight of his classmates. Then, the ground abruptly disappears from under his feet and he falls, crying out as he lands on something hard a moment later. Aha! A voice calls out gleefully. Fresh meat! Disoriented, Izuku blinks rapidly at the sight of a large jaw full of razor-sharp teeth snapping at him. He immediately scrambles backwards and sends a hard kick at his assailant's nose, causing them to jerk back with a yelp. Jumping to his feet, the boy realizes that he's no longer in the plaza anymore. Instead, he's surrounded by the rocks and uneven ground of the landslide zone. His classmates are gone too, replaced by a villain with a canine-like quirk that glares daggers at him. "Little twerp," she snarls, rubbing her nose. "That fucking hurt! You're dog food now!" She lunges at him again, teeth bared and claws swiping. Years of training kicks in, and Izuku moves on instinct, ducking under her fist and punching her in the stomach as he darts past. She wheezes as the air is knocked out of her and stumbles, giving him time to aim a kick at the back of her knees. Once she's on the ground, he turns tail and runs away, only to skid to a halt at the sight of another villain. Izuku can't quite tell what this one's quirk is. The man is large and has snake-like eyes, but no other hints as to what his quirk might be. He just barely manages to dodge his attack, but he doesn't have time to counter. The villain moves quickly, striking with such speed that all Izuku can do is just duck and dodge repeatedly. Movement at the corner of his eyes catches his attention and he blanches, realizing that there are multiple villains surrounding him. One of them aims some sort of weapon at him and he flinches. It's enough of a distraction to prevent him from avoiding the next attack from the snake-like man. Before the hit can land, however, everything around him freezes. Literally. Gasping, Izuku whirls around and spots Todoroki standing a few feet away, a sheet of ice spreading from his right foot. The villains are all frozen in place, but Izuku remains untouched. It's a testament to Todoroki's impressive control over his quirk that he was able to avoid freezing Izuku in his attack. "Todoroki-kun," Izuku pants, but the other boy just glares at the villains. "It's pathetic to lose against a single child," he says. "Get a hold of yourselves. You're adults, aren't you?" His tone is flat, but just like during their sparring match, his eyes burn. Izuku gulps, his whole body shaking with adrenaline and fear. "Todoroki-kun." Finally, the boy looks at him, but his gaze hardly softens. "Stay close to me," he orders before turning away. Still rattled from the sudden turn of events, Izuku wordlessly nods and scampers after him. Todoroki leads the way downhill. Since they're in the landslide zone, it's fairly obvious that the exit is at the bottom of the hill. Still, it's a long way to go, and it soon becomes clear that they have more villains to worry about. Villains seem to appear out of every corner, but no matter what their quirk is, Todoroki defeats them by simply freezing them. It's almost laughably easy, but it's also incredibly intimidating. Izuku could barely hold his own against two of the villains, and Todoroki is just stopping them in their tracks within seconds. It's a reminder to Izuku that this boy really is the strongest in the class, and he isn't even using half of his power. "Have you seen any of the others?" Izuku asks, glancing over his shoulder as they make their way downhill. "No," Todoroki replies. "That warp villain said he'd scatter us and kill us. The others must be spread out across the facility." Izuku lets out a trembling breath. This is all so crazy. He can't believe they're getting attacked by real villains on the second week of school. He hopes everyone else is okay. "All Might will be here soon," he says in a weak attempt at reassurance. His hand moves to his phone in his pocket, only to remember what Aizawa said about the circuits being jammed. Todoroki eyes his hand briefly before refocusing his attention on their surroundings. "I've been meaning to ask, how do you know All Might?" "Huh?" Izuku blinks, taken aback. "You seem familiar with him," Todoroki says. "And I'm sure Recovery Girl could have asked plenty of other heroes to sponsor you, so why him?" He talks so casually that Izuku can't believe his ears. "Todoroki-kun," he sputters. "I hardly think this is the best time to talk about this stuff. We're being attacked. How can you be so calm?" Todoroki gives him a look that he can't quite decipher. "You're scared," he states bluntly. "Well, duh!" "Don't be," he says dismissively, already turning away. "I'm perfectly capable of..." A loud voice suddenly yells behind Izuku, and Todoroki whirls around. His hand reaches towards him, and Izuku feels something whip past his ear. By the time his reflexes kick in, and he stumbles away, Todoroki has already frozen the villain, who looks like he was about to stab Izuku with a spear. 5 more jump out of nowhere, apparently deciding that ganging up on them is the best strategy, but Todoroki easily encases them in ice. Izuku gapes in awe, but the bicolored boy simply gives the villains an unimpressed look. "You're right, I suppose," he says, and it takes a moment to realize that he's talking to Izuku. "There are more important matters at hand." He turns to the villain that tried to stab them and says, "At this rate, your cells will slowly die. I want to be a hero, so I would like to avoid something so cruel if possible." Despite his words, his tone doesn't sound particularly regretful. Izuku tenses up as Todoroki raises his right hand to the villain's face. Clouds of cold air billow from his palm, and the villain's eyes widen in alarm. A hard ball forms in the pit of Izuku's stomach. "Todoroki-kun," he warns. Todoroki ignores him and keeps his stony gaze on the villain. "On what basis do you think you can kill All Might?" he demands. "What is your plan?" The villain seems to be frozen, both with fear and ice. The air is thick with tension. When he takes too long to respond, the frost in Todoroki's hand increases. Izuku can't take it anymore. "Todoroki-kun!" he barks, grabbing the boy's shoulder. "You'll suffocate him!" Todoroki doesn't take his eyes off of the villain. "Not if he tells me what I want to know." His finger twitches. The villain notices, and his eyes well up with fearful tears. "Todoroki-kun!" Izuku warns again, his breath catching in his throat. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like this torture tactic. Villain or not, Izuku can't stand by and watch a man freeze to death, or worse, watch his classmate hurt someone for information. Just the thought makes him feel nauseous. Thankfully, the villain caves a few moments later and starts sputtering. All right, I'll talk. I don't know much, but they've got a guy who can take him down. All Might, I mean. They've got someone who can fight him." As soon as he finishes talking, a loud boom suddenly echoes throughout the dome. Todoroki and Izuku glance up at the platform to see a large cloud of dust. Then, All Might steps out of the fog. Izuku lets out a sigh of relief. All Might. The number 1 hero is still far away, his form looking a lot smaller in the distance, but they are able to see him jump down into the plaza, no doubt going to help Aizawa fight that mass of villains that they saw earlier. Todoroki looks back at the frozen man and utters a simple, "Thanks," before knocking him out. He uses his left hand to unfreeze him and does the same with the rest of the frozen villains, leaving a bunch of unconscious but ice-free adults on the ground. Izuku must still have a displeased expression on his face because Todoroki takes one look at him and says, "I wasn't actually going to kill him. Relax." He starts walking downhill again, his pace fast, but Izuku hesitates. "It was unnecessary force," he mumbles under his breath. Todoroki is supposed to be a hero in training, and heroes don't act like that. So cold and uncaring at the pain he was causing. Seeing anyone get hurt triggers an instinct in Izuku to heal, and his gaze trails to the unconscious villains. Todoroki glances over his shoulder impatiently. When he realizes where he's looking, he says sharply, "Don't waste your energy on them." "I wasn't going to." Izuku suddenly feels the ground beneath him become slippery as ice forms under his feet. His arms flail as he slides down to Todoroki, who catches him before he can go any further. "Having a soft heart won't benefit you when it comes to villains," he says. "I got the information we needed. Now let's go." Before Izuku can say anything in response, Todoroki shifts to hold him with his left arm and turns the ground to ice again, creating a makeshift ice slide to take them downhill faster. He keeps his eye out for any other attacking villains, but it's clear that those were the last of them. Unfortunately, being pressed against Todoroki's left side, means being pressed against the layer of ice he has covering himself. That, mixed with the wind whipping at them from their quick descent, has Izuku shivering uncomfortably. "Hey, Todoroki-kun," he asks over the wind. "Now's probably not a great time to ask, but why don't you ever use your fire?" Todoroki doesn't respond, and when Izuku glances at him, he sees that the boy's jaw is clenched. "You're right," he grunts, barely audible. "Now's not a great time to ask." Izuku wrinkles his nose. "Hey, you asked about All Might!" "And you didn't answer." The slope evens out, and Todoroki returns them to normal ground, pulling away from him. "Come on." Pushing aside his annoyance, Izuku dashes after Todoroki as they race toward the exit. A loud boom, and a cloud of dust erupts from the plaza, the sound rattling Izuku's bones. His heart leaps to his throat. All Might must be fighting someone. And if what that villain said is true... He runs faster, passing Todoroki as he races over to where the dust is slowly clearing. Hey, wait! Ice forms underneath his feet, causing him to slip and fall backwards. Todoroki catches him, but keeps a firm grip on his arm to stop him from moving. "You don't know what you're running into," he snaps, pulling him back. Izuku's gaze slips past him, and he gasps. Todoroki turns to look as well. The cloud of dust in the plaza dissipates, revealing All Might in a precarious situation as he grapples with a large, hulking beast. The warp villain, along with another man with strange hands covering his body, looks on from a few feet away. The beast's torso is stuck in one of the warp villain's portals, but his head and arms come out from the ground underneath All Might, who is bent over backwards. Izuku flinches at the sight of the beast's fingers digging into All Might's side. Blood starts soaking his shirt, and he knows the beast must be hitting his weak spot. Nearby, Aizawa is still fighting against the mass of villains. Despite their numbers being steadily depleted, they refuse to let the teacher get past them. The blue-haired man with the strange hands lets out an eerie laugh. "Were you trying to keep him from moving by sticking him deep in the concrete? You won't be able to stop him like that." Somehow, his voice both sounds chastising and amused at the same time. "Nomu is as strong as you are. This is good, Kurogiri. It's an unexpected opportunity." He glances at the warp villain beside him, who must be Kurogiri. The beast, the Nomu, claws at All Might's side even harder, causing the hero to release his grip and try to pry the brutish hands off of him. Kurogiri eyes the number one hero. "I do not want blood and guts flowing within me," he rumbles. "But I would be happy to take in someone as great as you." As he talks, the Nomu starts dragging All Might into the portal. "You're too fast to see with the human eye. Restraining you was Nomu's job. And then, when your body is halfway in..." Izuku gasps as the portal starts closing around All Might's arms and torso. He lunges forward, but Todoroki pulls him back with a hard yank. "Todoroki-kun!" he cries out, but the boy fixes him with a hard glance. "Stay here." "But..." "Don't make me freeze your feet to the ground." Letting out a frustrated groan, Izuku looks back at All Might, who's slowly being cut by Kurogiri's portal. His heart skips a beat. "Go!" Todoroki whirls around and dashes over to the villains. Once he's close enough, he stops and stomps his right foot on the ground, causing ice to race across the ground and freeze the Nomu, stopping right before it reaches All Might. Then, he sends a jagged chunk of ice to Kurogiri, who narrowly dodges, but the distraction causes him to loosen his portal slightly. Then, all of a sudden, the portal disappears completely. All Might and the Nomu are forced out and onto the ground, the former freeing himself from the latter's grip and jumping to stand beside Todoroki. "All Might!" Aizawa's voice reaches Izuku's ears. His homeroom teacher rushes over to the scene, keeping his eyes on Kurogiri as he wraps his capture weapon around the villain and slams him down. He pounces on top of him and pins him to the ground, panting heavily as his body shakes with exhaustion from fighting the mass of villains. No doubt his eyes must be burning, but nevertheless, He keeps his gaze locked on Kurogiri and avoids looking at All Might or Todoroki. The boss villain makes a noise of fascination. "You're so cool, Eraserhead. So cool." All Might. Aizawa grunts again. The question of "Are you okay?" is silent. Izuku is still standing a bit away, but he is close enough to see All Might's injuries. Kurogiri's portal created a large cut shaped like a ring around the hero's chest and biceps, and his left side is bleeding from where the Nomu dug into his weak spot. Izuku swallows heavily. He desperately wants to help. He wants to run over there and heal All Might and make all those villains stop, but he can't. The familiar, horrible feeling of helplessness rises in his throat and makes his eyes prick with frustrated tears. It's just like that time with Furuya and Akamine, or when those villains tried to kidnap him, or even when Kachan turned on him. He's useless. He can't do anything in a fight. He's not a hero, he's just... "Nomu," the boss villain orders. "Save Kurogiri." The partially frozen beast immediately rights himself into a standing position, completely ignoring how the ice breaks his limbs off in chunks. Izuku watches in horror as new ones grow back right before his eyes. All Might is shocked, too. "What? His quirk wasn't shock absorption." "I didn't say that was all he had," the ringleader laughs. "This is his super regeneration. Nomu has been modified to take you at 100%. Fear seizes his throat. Crap, but All Might isn't at 100%. Do these villains somehow know of his injury? In the blink of an eye, the Nomu darts over to attack Aizawa, still pinning down Kurogiri. Before anyone can react, the beast punches and sends a giant shockwave across the facility. Something flies right toward Izuku and he dodges, squeezing his eyes shut against the dust and debris. The air slowly clears and he lifts his head, inhaling sharply when he sees that All Might is suddenly a lot closer to him than before. The #1 hero has been forced back into a nearby wall, apparently having taken the brunt of the Nomu's punch instead of Aizawa. He's been knocked back towards where Izuku has been watching, now only a few meters away from the greenette. All Might is panting heavily as he recovers from the blow. He coughs a couple of times and Izuku can see the blood that escapes his lips. His eyes widen. This is his chance. Without giving himself time to think twice, he dashes over to All Might, yanks off his gloves, and grabs onto his exposed forearm. As soon as their skin makes contact, his quirk automatically activates and rapidly pours energy into the hero. He's so desperate to help him that he completely forgets why he's always avoided healing All Might in the first place. His quirk instantly reacts to the numerous wounds he feels on the man, but thankfully, the majority of his energy begins pouring into his immediate wounds first, rather than scars or missing organs. All Might startles at his sudden appearance and quickly pushes him away a moment later, stopping his quirk before it can do much to heal his older injuries. That's fine, though. All he needed was a few seconds. The wounds from Kurogiri's portal and the Nomu's grip stop bleeding, the skin visibly closed once more. "Young Midoriya," All Might rasps, looking torn. "Thank you for healing me, but you need to get out of here right now." "Oi, what the hell is this?" the boss villain suddenly growls. "Why'd you stop bleeding?" He almost sounds like he's whining. Kurogiri's golden eyes narrow. "Shigaraki, look at the boy's costume." Izuku can't see Shigaraki's face behind the hand mask, but he gets the feeling the villain's eyes are on him. After a moment, the man makes a noise of intrigue. "Oh, not a hero?" His stance suddenly freezes. "A healer." Izuku gulps and All Might tenses up beside him. Shigaraki is speechless for a moment. Then a low growl rises in his throat. That's not fair," he rasps. This is fucking cheating." His voice becomes enraged. "You're not supposed to have a healer. How the fuck did he heal you like that? How did he heal—" He cuts himself off abruptly. Kurogiri, having been saved by Nomu, moves beside Shigaraki and whispers something in his ear. The boss villain stiffens, then, "No," he hisses. "No, no, no, no!" His hands reach up and he starts furiously scratching at his neck, spitting and snarling with rage. "No! It's not supposed to be this way. It's not supposed to. You're supposed to be weak. He said you'd be." "Shigaraki," Kurogiri says, tone sharp. The wild scratching stops, but instead Shigaraki whips his head towards Izuku. You're a fucking cheat code. You, Nomu." As soon as he shrieks the name, both the Beast and All Might react. Now that he's healed and energized, All Might is able to meet the Nomu halfway as the latter lunges for Izuku. They strike each other simultaneously, and the impact causes another shock wave, knocking everyone off their feet. All Might punches the Nomu again, but the Beast doesn't show any pain and punches back. For a few moments, all anyone can do is stare at the two massive forces of power as they trade blows back and forth. All Might soon punches the Nomu hard enough to knock him into a nearby forest area, and the fight continues on there. They can still feel the effects of the shock waves that are created as All Might forces the Nomu back, but at least now they're able to stand. "Brat!" Izuku's head whips around to see Shigaraki lunging towards him, hands outstretched. A flash of blonde suddenly crashes into Izuku, arms wrapped around his torso, and the next thing he knows he's flying off the ground, explosions ringing in his ears. "Kachan!" At the same time, gray tendrils latch onto Shigaraki and yank him backwards, pulling him away from Izuku. Aizawa pounces on the villain, and Kurogiri moves to intercept him, but Izuku can't see what happens after that. Kachan carries him over to where Todoroki and, surprisingly, Kirishima are waiting. "You idiot!" he snarls as he sets him down. "What were you thinking, getting into the middle of a fight?" "It's not his fault," Todoroki says. "That thing knocked All Might over to where Midoriya was hiding. Although, rushing over to heal his wounds wasn't a good idea." He gives Izuku a look. "What was I supposed to do?" Izuku snaps. "He was injured." Kachan's eye twitches. "What you're supposed to do is—" "Oi, talk about this later," Kirishima barks, eyes locked on something else. "We've got company." Izuku follows his gaze to see that a few of the villains that Aizawa took down have regained consciousness and are running towards them. Todoroki immediately freezes 3 of them, but one has a quirk that lets her fly, so she's able to dodge his ice. Kachan uses his explosions to launch himself into the sky and lets out a battle cry as he attacks her. Meanwhile, one of the villains that Todoroki froze aims his silver fingers at them. Izuku has just enough time to duck behind Kirishima before an onslaught of bullets are fired at them. Todoroki creates a wall of ice to protect himself while Kirishima activates his hardening quirk, protecting both himself and Izuku. A pained grunt catches the greenette's attention, and he looks over. Aizawa isn't faring too well against both Kurogiri and Shigaraki. The man obviously can't risk letting Kurogiri out of his sight, or else he might warp him, or them, away, and that is something that Shigaraki is clearly trying to take advantage of. He crumbles the hero scarf beneath his fingers when Aizawa tries to bind him, and makes to dart behind him, and the man instinctively turns to intercept, to protect himself, only to have his vision blocked out by the purple fog that descends over his face to cover his eyes. He curses and immediately lashes out blindly to strike Kurogiri, but it's too late. Shigaraki grins beneath his mask, and Izuku watches in horror as the villain grabs his teacher's back with both hands. Aizawa screams. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 11 of the Roundabout Way of Fate. Chapter 12 will be up next. Really curious to hear what you all think about how this author portrays the USJ attack and what all's taking place in this whole scenario. We've got some more interactions between Izuku and Todoroki, right? Todoroki coming to Izuku's aid, so definitely a different way than how it usually plays out. And then also, right, Izuku getting an opportunity to heal All Might mid-fight, him getting distracted by the Nomu, and rather than the way things typically play out, Aizawa's getting injured here at the end in a different fashion than how it normally plays out too. So really want to hear what you all think. Drop those thoughts, comments, reactions below. As always, thank you all so much for listening.